People are hurting right now, and the old places are hurting the most because if you've owned and operated a business for 30 years, 35 years, and your prices have been X
Yep. How do
for
you go
35
up? How do you
years,
go up?
you're not telling a 65-year-old Italian guy he's got to start charging $23 for his pizza to make it work. And
Yep.
these businesses, they might be doing business, but they're not making money.
Hello, Tom LaVecchia here with the latest and special edition of the New Theory Podcast. This has been a guest that I've been wanting to have for a while. If you don't know who he is, you know who he is now. Peter Falzo?
Falzo, correct.
Make sure I say it correctly. I know I'm Italian, but sometimes I mess it up. So he owns Vinny's Pizzeria, amongst other things, which is a highly rated pizzeria, not only in New Jersey, in the area, but in the country. We'll talk about the Portnoy effect a little bit. And he just got an interesting story. I just wanted him to come in and just chat with him a little bit. So, Peter, welcome to the New Theory Podcast. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So, your first podcast?
First podcast, yeah. We've first one I think of this level. There's been a few other that we've kind of spoken on and around as we were coming up the last few years, but I think this one has the most reach. So
Awesome.
I'm flattered to be here.
I have a few questions to ask you. So, I want to start off with what people mostly probably ask you about. So, I'm a big Barstool guy, big Dave Portnoy guy. But I'm a business guy first, and I always wonder. And my cousin in 10th Street Pizza, shout out to Mario. He told me like after Portnoy came in, I think he gave him like an 8.8 or 8.6. Like it exploded. Give me kind of how your experience when he came in with you, and I want to know as much detail as you're comfortable with after effect and what type of positive or negative effect it had on your restaurant.
Yeah, I listen. I know Dave gets a lot of shit from people in the industry, right, wrong, or indifferent. I personally think what he's doing for small businesses, when you look past some of his approaches, is fantastic.
I agree.
During COVID, I think he saved a lot of small businesses and
Yep.
did a lot of really good things that'll offset anything negative about him. But the effect of it is absolutely real.
You had an 8.82, was it?
We had an 8.3.
That's just huge. That's huge.
Which is fantastic.
Wow. I love it, 8.3. Like, I love this pizza. The sauce, it's so thin. I a lot of times go, like, and say, oh, I like the bar pie, I like it thin, I like it crispy, but they're missing the crisp, or it's too greasy or something like that. No. This is not greasy at all. Perfect crisp. A little hard to hold with the crust. This is like a great bar pie. This is like when I say I like a great bar pie, this is kind of it. A little on the bigger side. 8.3. Vinny's.
Somebody said, I think we were one of the higher post-COVID reviews.
Oh, beautiful.
That had come out. And his review that day was pretty spot on. And I have to be perfectly honest, I was hoping to always be there. When he
You
was
weren't there?
I was not there.
Wow.
Which to me is really great because, listen, I think what is it saying? You're only as strong as your weakest link. My staff was there, and my manager, Jay, was
Good guy.
doing his thing, and he's got a huge passion for pizza, and he crushed it. He did a great job.
Wow.
I don't think he knew what was going on when it happened, which is funny because if you watch the video of it, people are always like, he was saying, oh, he's cocky, this guy's cocky, this guy's cocky. And like,
That guy was so cocky. He's like, oh, this place is going to be jamming when I'm done with it. Yeah, you're going to be fucking jamming.
like, I've got people calling me like, why are you being so cocky? And I'm like, I wasn't even there. It wasn't me.
Yeah.
They're like, what do you mean? I was like, it wasn't me. I was not there.
I love it.
But I checked my camera when he called me. He's like, Portnoy literally just left here. I'm like, shut up. Now, mind you,
That's
literally
nuts.
leading up into that,
Yeah.
I fired somebody who had been with me for like a year.
Oh, wow.
And he hit the red button. So he was politely dismissed.
Yeah.
And I had been working like insane hours
Yikes.
leading up into that. So I was like, I need a break.
Yeah.
So I told him, I was like, I'm going to go down the shore for a night to go stay with my girlfriend. I was like, I'll be back for service
And that's when he
Friday
came in.
afternoon. Literally Friday that morning, I'm like, my phone was blowing up. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? He's like, oh, he just showed up. And I'm like, all right, just do your thing, dude. Like, don't really sweat it. It is what it is. And like, respectfully to Dave, like, he's never going to make or break what I do with my business. Like, it's just not,
In a long continuum, it's going to smooth out. But
I appreciate the exposure.
But in the short run.
The short run is fantastic. It gives you a level of exposure that I don't think a lot of people are capable of getting on their own.
Correct.
In reach, which is great. But it's like, if you come to my place, there's no Barstool stuff. I don't have it on my boxes.
Yeah.
I don't have it on my shirts.
Yeah, Angeloni's has it outside. Calabria's has
those
it
guys,
outside.
fantastic.
God bless. Yeah.
No disrespect to anybody
Yeah.
that does do that.
Yeah.
But my vision of what I'm doing with my business will never entail riding the coattails of somebody else that's established himself. It's just not going to happen.
Well, not just that. It's kind of like you probably have your game plan, which we'll talk about up here or written down, and by getting to that milestone, he might have helped you got there earlier, or he's maybe part of a plan. Insert, we're going to make a lot of people happy. We're going to make him happy, maybe accelerate things. But I get what you're saying. You kind of have your continuum, right? And in the long game,
correct,
it's important. Don't get me wrong, but it may accelerate things or change the dynamic. But it's not the be all and end all.
It absolutely won't be. And it's like, listen, my business model is definitely not the stereotypical pizzeria business model.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that because I was actually with Steve again. We was there for pizza earlier. I go to Peter's place even when he's not there. I go there all the time, and like I was talking with Steve. He got the model right away, and we're gonna talk about that. I want to say that in a second.
I'll leave it alone. But yeah, so I mean, listen, the reality of it is that he doesn't tell you when he's posting a review.
Yeah.
I fired somebody. I immediately, literally half wet, got dressed, drove back up from the shore, and I was like, you don't know. So it's like you really have that little bit of, oh my God, what happens if it's bad situation in your head.
Because you don't know the score, right?
You don't know the score. He does not tell you.
Oh,
and I
wow.
told them, and like we had rules. It was like, you leave him the fuck alone if he comes in.
Yeah.
And just let him do his thing. And you can't worry about whatever happens. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. It's meant to be. So
I like that.
Don't put pressure on yourself and just let it go.
So it gets released 8/2 because I actually went there early on because of that. Give me because we don't give too much away, but maybe unit increase, percentage increase.
Oh, it was a circus for about 3 months. I think.
That long.
Yeah, 3 months. It was a circus, and immediately, Friday nights in the pizza business are Friday nights. It is
Correct.
So it's
like every night was a Friday night, pretty much.
Every night was amped up. I would say, to that 25 to 30% mark, which is on a Tuesday or Wednesday night when you're not really, when you're just doing a normal business. That's a huge influx. It's a great little,
But let me ask you this, because Mark Cuban says sales cures all, but when you have a 30% increase, let's say on a continuum over 90 days, and you're a small business. What bumps and bruises? Did you run out of boxes? Run out of tomatoes? Your supplier? Like, I can't imagine it went super smoothly.
Truthfully, exhaustion.
Yeah.
I think everybody was just really
more manpower issues.
Yeah, it was more manpower issues than anything else because, granted, again, you're still coming right out of COVID.
Yeah.
And people were still having a hard time finding staff.
Yeah.
I was very, very picky about who I hired. I still am picky about who I'm hiring because I want.
You're lean over there. I noticed every time you go there. There's
I have a couple guys. Listen, when I first opened up, and you want to hear that part of it, I'd be more than happy to get into it. But the first year I was open, I went through some pretty interesting times.
Yeah.
Leading up into opening that. I mean, it was kind of a dice roll and a double down. I used the last few dollars I had left after a pretty interesting divorce and COVID and shutting down my restaurant and deciding which direction I wanted to go.
Kind of a triple whammy.
Yeah, I hit a trifecta.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes that makes you rise through things and kind of find yourself. So during the time of that, I focused, literally it was a 75% to my kids.
Yeah.
75 to my kids, 5% to me, 20% to the business.
So the bottom line is Portnoy effect is real, made you some money, it helped you out, accelerated things, some human resource challenges, AK couldn't find anybody, which was par for the course. So that's kind of awesome to hear, kind of a little bit behind the scenes after the Portnoy effect. Let's start off with first your business journey. Had a restaurant, I believe, in Livingston?
Same spot in Short Hills. I've been in that space in Millburn for, let's say, 14 years now.
What was it before?
It was called Peter's. It was Peter's in Millburn. It was a small,
he never even knew.
Small old world,
little bistro,
40-seat bistro that did very, very well for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Both my father was retired and my mother never worked and somehow got roped into helping me.
Yeah.
And it was like
a family business.
It was like a family business, but it was working with family is not easy.
Correct.
When we first took it, we were taking it to make a franchise.
Yeah.
And my father, who was always in business, went through a little bit of a downside or downswing.
Yeah.
And we were trying to figure out life. So it was
do.
everybody had to kind of come together. And
that was before, prior to I say C19. Sometimes we get demonetized.
Yeah, it was around 2010.
Oh, 2010, so way
Yeah.
before.
It was
Okay.
right before right around the market crashed, and people were kind of sideways. So we were trying to figure out what the hell we were going to do
Oh, wow.
as a family. And fortunately, we grew up around food. We were pretty well traveled and well educated in food, and we know people. So people are, 80% of the equation.
So you had this, we said 40-seat bistro?
Yeah, it was 40
Pretty big.
bistro that was there. Yeah. If you think about what's there now.
Yeah.
I think I was slated in the town for like 12 seats, but, you got to turn a profit somewhere. So we figured it out.
And then that brought you up to when?
That brought us up until I would say around 19.
So in 19, because you didn't know what was going to happen with the world, you're like, all right, you know what? Let me pivot and change my model. And what was the cause for that pivot? And then talk us about your new model, which I love.
So my uncle, who is Vinny, where the name came from, owned Camerata's in Livingston, which is still there. We have absolutely no affiliation with it. He's probably rolling in his grave at this point from what it's evolved into.
He sold out to him, or?
He sadly died
Okay.
after a struggle with cancer, and he was around to see us open the restaurant.
Oh, good, okay.
I was super, super close with him growing up. Anytime I was in between jobs or hanging out, I learned his business model, which was what I kind of duplicated there.
Interesting.
And that was kind of where I was like, if I'm going to have to be in hospitality,
That's how
I
you
have to
know.
have a life. And I have to be able to see my kids when I'm not working.
But that's a whole like antithesis, because like growing up, let's say you're like an Italian family, old school, like a Greek family, or like, an ethnic family. It was like everybody kind of worked there. You punted your Friday nights, weekends, summers. There was no like
There was not for
you're
me
missing
for a very long
prom
time.
and that stuff. So you were like, hey, you know what? I want to kind of come with a new school model, which includes like good quality offerings.
Correct.
But I'm not punting my August or whatever.
I'm not giving up. I'm not sacrificing quality of life any longer for hospitality, because at the end of the day, everybody's got to earn a living in and around the industry. And kudos to the chefs that want to work 100 hours a week and they live, eat, and breathe it in that old world culture. I just realized after everything that I went through for that year or two, where I was like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah, I want to get to that too, because there's a lot of different machinations. So business wise, you decided to pivot. So you had your uncle's pizza
Portnoy
recipe,
which
I ate there today. And who's gonna bring some more pizza? I probably would have eaten more. I would have ate more. I would have ate more. I wouldn't know. I would have. And thank God you didn't, because I would have ate more.
Now I feel bad that I didn't.
No, I would have. And I had. So Steve Gregg, shout out to Steve. Your guy just makes whatever. Trust him. I don't even ask. So I had like whatever on it. It was beautiful, and then like peppers and the usual, and. Then I tried a steak sandwich, and it's not a cheese, it's a steak.
Do you know what's weird?
It's actual steak.
I don't get the exposure for any of that stuff, and it's pretty good. Like, it's
your ancillary stuff maybe.
Shit.
And shout out to Josh, because Josh Foods, he's a reviewer online, and along with Kevin, they did a 3-part review. They did the meatballs, they did this cheesesteak, and that's kind of why I got the cheesesteak today, because of Josh. So you say, hey, I got the recipe down. But the recipe is a banger. I mean, it's legit.
So my uncle had his business for 35 plus years. The original, the Reservoir in South Orange was another phenomenal old school place.
Yeah,
is my godmother's family.
Oh wow!
So it was my uncle's first wife's family. The original Reservoir was in Newark, New Jersey. I don't even know.
Really?
Yeah, the original Reservoir was in Newark.
Interesting.
The original pans were from like a movie theater in Newark, supposedly. So they were like cast iron pans, and that was a family my uncle married into. He bought that business when he was 18. He ended up marrying the daughter of one of the locations, and that's the way he ran it. That was what the family's recipe. There's some similarities in what we do because of the pans, but the style of the pizza is a little bit different. The only thing I did different between my uncle's pizza and mine is I thinned it out slightly.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a little on the thinner side versus old school.
Because it's just people don't eat the same way they used to. They're looking for things to be a little bit lighter.
Correct.
So I figured if I took off a tiny bit of,
modernized a little bit,
modernized it slightly, and it seems to be receptive.
All right. So then Vinny's Pizza was born 2019, correct?
Technically 2020, but yeah, we launched February of 2020.
Okay, but you
Started in
literally, February 2020
Yeah.
is when I bought my house. 2 weeks later, the world collapsed.
Correct.
But you literally positioned it for a C19 type place. Like it's a grab and go delivery, but with a good product. That I can't wrap my head around, because generally, if you have it's either, hey, it's a good pizzeria, right? Good place.
Mm-hmm.
Sit down, take out the usual, or hey, I'm takeout only, but it's a shitty pie. You kind of mastered both. So if you don't mind me asking, were you product first? Okay, let's make a great pizza. Then we'll figure out the process.
Correct.
Did you know you had the product, and then did you figure out I want to how all this came together.
Literally before I opened, the place was done. I still had paper on the walls.
Okay.
And like you've been through a divorce.
Yeah,
I could say
yeah,
this, like you
yeah.
just want to be by yourself sometimes.
Correct,
So
correct,
I kind of found peace in pizza.
Yeah.
So I would literally just go there, and
Make
and I'm
pizza.
like, I have to get this perfect. I'm gonna make this perfect. So I just
So
engulfed myself.
you
with it.
adopted your uncle's recipe and perfected it.
Pretty much,
Which
yeah.
you did.
Now, mind you, my cousin, my uncle's daughter, who's culinarily phenomenal, nobody knew the exact recipe because everything was done with him with pans that looked like they fell off the Empire State Building.
Yeah.
And they were like, you fill the water to
Yeah, and that
the third line,
Italians
and
don't use no
yeast
more.
is a
of
golf
that,
ball size. And
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
are you
yeah,
fucking kidding
yeah,
me? Like,
yeah,
how am I
yeah.
supposed to? I can't.
Pinches. And,
So for weeks, I was literally messing with the dough. And I had somebody come in, and I won't mention their name because they asked to be anonymous, who's been in the industry a really, really long time.
Nice.
And he was like, you need to do this. And he spent 2 hours with me, and everything that I was like, it was like a board, and everything kind of just came to
together.
Nubis, and it just came together.
That's
And
awesome.
I appreciate them indefinitely. I would help them because they really helped me
That's awesome.
figure out that one piece. I have no proper culinary training, but
Yeah,
it's
I was gonna say, because I didn't hear you at the CIA. I didn't hear
No, none of that.
you were back at the
I had the
house.
school of Vin Falzo, which was get screamed at until you did it right, or it was old school.
Not a
but
bad school to come from.
No, the irony was I hated it in my early years. I
Yeah.
mean, I despised working there.
Yeah.
I just couldn't understand the lifestyle. I saw how hard my uncle worked. I saw what little time he had, and I was like, I'm never.
Wow.
So that was why I was like, I have to find some sort of hybrid move. And there's a group in California, shout out to Nourish Brands, who I do business development, and I had met them through a third-party friend of mine. Nourish Brands is a group out of California that helps scale businesses.
Smart.
They're just a good group of guys that have been around hospitality a very, very long time.
Yeah.
A couple of them were pizza heads. I brought them an opportunity, and I said, in lieu of anything, I want to tell you what I'm going to do.
This is what I got cooking.
And I want you to yay or nay things that I'm doing.
I like
And
that.
they
So
kind
you literally set this up. Like, for example, somebody opens a place. Oh, wow, it does really well. People like it. They open up a second unit. Wow, they like it here too. We have a third. Let's franchise. You opened up with the intention of expansion from off the rip.
I absolutely did, yeah.
I like
I mean,
that.
the reality of it is that if I have a marketing background, if I had to say I went to school for anything, it was marketing.
I could tell.
So that I always, I worked for some pretty big companies that did marketing, but I always had an eye for that, and I understand people. So if you could find a little piece of the market that's
Correct.
not exposed, and I think pizza
Exploit it.
appeals to everybody.
Yeah.
And one of my friends had dinner with Daniel Myers.
Oh, wow.
Okay, he had dinner with Danny Myers.
I just finished
and he was
Reasonable Hospitality.
fantastic.
Will Gadar. My favorite book. Shout out to Will.
So he and I were talking a lot, and he was a French culinary trained chef. He studied overseas.
yeah.
He had these unbelievable resume of places he's been
Number
around and worked
one
at.
restaurant in the world.
And he's sitting there with Danny Myers talking, and they're like having a very upscale dinner, and they're buying wines and they're doing tastings, and he's like, "Can I ask you a question?" Because he was trying to advise him, and he's like, "Do you want to sit with me at the table, or do you want to feed me at the table?"
Interesting.
And he's like, I had to sit there and I got to think about it because if you want to sit with me at the table, you can't feed 1% of the world. He goes, you have to feed the masses.
Yeah.
So it's either you're going to be in the kitchen and you could feed me. He goes,
Yeah.
and there's nothing wrong with that.
Correct.
But the reality is if you want to be at this level, you have to feed the masses. So you have to think about the masses.
Interesting.
So Shake Shack was designed to
For
feed
that.
the masses. Okay?
And Shake Shack wind up keeping 11 afloat.
Correct.
And the hotel that they have, I forget the name of it.
Most of it is now supporting most of their investments.
That's insane.
So the reality of it is that if you could find, and I'm still, listen, everybody's like, you're opening a second location. I am, but the reality is I'm not looking to rob from Peter to pay Paul. I want the formula to be specific.
Well, I was talking with Steve earlier, so I want to I'm going to try to unpack your model, and you hit the yay or nay button. Okay, so smaller footprint. You have the pizza now. You have the ancillary stuff, the meatballs, the steak. So you kind of have the offerings, a little bit of cult following, blocking and tackling done. You just have it like the product is done, right? Or at least excellent in my opinion, right? My opinion. Okay. Smaller footprint. So sorry for the non-Jersey people, but you could be in like a Westfield, a Ridgewood. I'm thinking out loud. Maybe like a Metuchen if you want a Main Street feel. But you can go to those places and operate for less because you need a smaller footprint. And then once it grabs on, it's kind of like a grab and go or delivery. And because it's pizza, you theoretically have the margin to do the DoorDashes, etc., if they're not getting killed.
Correct.
And not wash, rinse, and repeat, but wash, rinse, and repeat.
So much.
That's my
in essence
how I absorbed it.
Yes, I think people were retrained. I mean, if there was one thing positive to come out of COVID that I took away from it, people were retrained of how they procure food. Yeah. Right? They become accustomed to paying a little bit more for delivery. They become accustomed to getting food from a face that they don't know.
Yeah.
And the apps kind of were thriving, and they retrained people of how they're purchasing food. Listen, there's a lot of places that still use deliveries, guys. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. If you could find a delivery
I just
guy,
get worried. I used to back in the day, real quick. I used to back in the day work for a place called Manzo's in Union, and it was a family place, and I was like the delivery guy. And like I remember driving one day, and I almost like ran somebody over, and I was thinking like, if I ran somebody over, those guys would be fucked. Like so, like
I was 17, and I was borrowing my uncle's pickup truck to take a delivery.
Oh Jesus!
Some old lady, I didn't even touch her, literally was behind me and dove on the ground, and I had a lawsuit for 2.5 years over
Jesus Christ.
And the first thing my uncle says to me is like, "You were not delivering pizza." Yeah. And I was like 17. Is like, dude,
because now I mean, then I know some guys into space. Then they created like a separate LLC, so if they run somebody over, it's like just seems like a lot.
Why do you want
to just you know what you do? Charge 14% more on your go away. People are happy with that. We're happy to have the convenience. I said certain towns, which I believe are willing to pay the freight on that, so I get that. Without giving your strategy away, you could kind of ghost kitchen your pizza, or you think you might sacrifice quality if you did?
So that is the ultimate goal, which I think these guys from Nourish Brand and we've.
That's kind of what they do.
Well, they have there's unbelievable concepts out there, and the reality of it is that it's happening already. But I have a 10 and a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
By the time they're my age,
they're
because I do with them and how strongly I believe in sitting at a table and spending time together. They're always going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm hoping they're always going to do it, or they at least have a culture and an education for food
to do it. Yeah.
But the reality of it is that the way that they order food, if they're home just hanging out, or the way they do things, it's going to be different. You go to a place now and they're eliminating people from everything, which I think is awful. But that's why their generation is doomed, because they can't even engage a person, because you order food now, you don't talk to somebody. You order off an app. You go to ShopRite and you're out of.
I was in Nashville this last weekend, and we went to a taco place, and there's a lady standing there, and she instructed me to use a kiosk. I'm like, well, you're right there.
Correct. That's the most ironic thing in the world.
Do you want to do it for me, maybe? I don't know.
I don't, listen, I'm a people person. I still get shit from people for picking the phone up and calling them instead of texting. I just want a conversation.
All right. So the model I got down, the pizza's awesome. Check out Vinny's Pizza. Anything on packaged consumer goods like flash freezing or heat to go. I'm just because I like the business end of things.
There's some places that are doing the frozen stuff and they're crushing it, right? So I have some ideas that I don't really want to fully expose.
And I'll reverse engineering a strategy. You got to pay $3,000 for this podcast.
I have arguments, and I don't even.
No, your product. Your product is not transferable. The strategy could be reverse engineered by a smart guy. But the reason why I'm comfortable talking about your strategy is nobody's making your pizza, Vin. I mean, Peter. They're just not. They're not making Vinny's pizza.
Listen, one of the things that we do we do like a slow fermentation for 3 days of our dough.
Oh wow!
So a lot of people don't do that because they're so.
Do you ever do the old school Italian, like once you're out of dough for the day, you're done, or you try to make sure you have enough?
When we opened, it was like that was part of the Portnoy effect. Was like you have a certain amount of dough, so that was like part of the learning curve that you spoke of. I was like, I gotta get more.
So important question though. So being kind of an old school guy and making sure you have enough dough, are you using like AI and different tools to predict demand? Or are you still just fucking throwing spaghetti against the wall?
So we pretty much at this point have, and honestly, I've got 2 people now that just make the dough.
That's
They
it.
have a morning and a night routine.
I noticed that the guys go, there's no pizzas going, they're just making dough.
They're just making dough. So the
Smart.
reality of it is that they.
And because you have a 3-day life cycle on it, ideally you just keep making it, it's going to get used.
Working with fresh dough is just a lot harder, but the reality of it is this is like engulfing yourself in pizza. Like yeast is a live component.
Yeah.
So it's like the body digests things that are a live component much better than they do
Smart.
something that's not. So
Yeah.
if you look at, the next time you came in, I'll show you a bowl of dough from
We should do
today
an
in
on-site
2
thing,
days.
Yeah.
I would love to, but the reality of it is it starts to really smell like alcohol.
Interesting.
And it gets this fermentation smell to it. And that's the best dough, is that 3-day. And 4-day gets to the point where it's like you either love it or don't love it,
Yeah.
and it gets kind of tricky to work
So you
with.
found the sweet spot at 3 days.
Yeah, 3 days we find is the best.
And the meatballs, is it 3 meats or 2?
1.
So 1.
Yeah. They're
Just
all beef.
Just beef?
Yeah.
But it doesn't taste like it though.
I know. My guys would make meatballs with our recipe, and he actually did a little bit of his, and I hybrided it after we got it, and they're good.
Onions?
No onions.
My father would put onions in the meatball. My mother didn't. My father
No
did.
onions. There's one thing that I'm not gonna throw out that we do that not a lot of people do. It's a little more expensive, but
Yeah.
it's why they retain the moisture so well. He
Ah.
loves.
So did you go crazy on each of the things? Okay, got the pizza done, went crazy on the meatballs, then got the steak, or were those easier to get to goal with?
So the easiest things for me were like the easiest of the equation, because I had a restaurant and everybody went crazy for our parms all the time.
Yeah.
It was like the parm section of the
Got
menu.
it.
I don't believe in having a diner menu / pizzeria menu anymore. I think that
You only have like 4 or 5 items, right?
I do pizzas of a select amount. I do salads of a select amount with 2 proteins, no shrimp, no fish, because the overhead is just way too much.
Yeah.
Okay, we do meatball, eggplant, chicken. Okay, parm.
With a
no
parm
veal.
sauce there.
Simple stuff.
Yeah, veal
Sandwich
gets
platter.
expensive.
Couple chicken cutlet sandwiches. Couple pastas, and that's it. And now we
call
just
it a day.
introduced our ribeye sandwich, which is doing really well.
Ooh, yeah.
Just to give some sort of variety of, and wings. Our wings are awesome too. I had a
gotta try
friend,
them. My wife's coming. If she comes, we might have to go back for some wings. She loves wings.
Our wings are good.
So okay, so kind of got like that template kind of down, but it hasn't been an easy road. So obviously you mentioned earlier, we talked offline, that you went through like a pretty rough divorce. When was that? Like pre, post, like when was the area and what was kind of going on?
That was 18, I think it started.
Okay.
And it was like right as COVID was imploding and my restaurant was imploding. So I had a chef that was with me for the better part of 10 years.
Oh wow.
And he fried. He was done. He burnt out.
Crazy.
And that was the beginning of the demise of the restaurant. But like the saying goes, everything happens for a reason.
So this is where you're at that time. Like respectfully, marriage deteriorating, business deteriorating, and you're just sitting like, fuck me.
Literally. And I
Okay.
was like, okay. So I was like, I hired a chef who had this great resume. He was like, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And it was like, I was paying him. I was like, all right, first dice roll. And I was like, we rolled dice with him for a year and he buried me because I trusted him to try to do what my other chef was doing. And he clearly just had no, conscience other than collecting a check every week. And I got to the point where it was like, all right, you have X amount of money left. Like, what the fuck are you going to do? So I was like, I'm shutting it down. And, sadly I had to make a decision with my family and myself. Now I had my own family to worry about, where it was like, I'm going to help you guys as much as I can, but I'm doing this by myself.
So when you was it shutting down the restaurant an independent decision in a sense where that was shutting down no matter what, or did external factors like the divorce and other stuff kind of like exacerbate that?
No, it was a decision where it was like, all right, if you run this right into the fucking ground and try to do this any longer, you're going to use all the money you have to try and do something else.
Which is scary.
Or you just take a step back and recalibrate. And I remember when it was. I was just in not such a great place, and I was like, my uncle was always like this sounding pole for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I literally, like, sounds ridiculous, but I would go see him at his grave, and I would just kind of like talk to him for a minute. And like,
wrong with that.
a couple days later, I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, that worked.
Yeah.
Like, that worked. It works. I know it works.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do it, and I'm going to figure it out. And
So this is like 18, 19, let's just say, right?
Yeah.
And then you kind of like recalibrated the restaurant, that kind of stuff. But you're kind of an entrepreneur guy. Did you have other income, or like you were just shot out?
I did. I do.
Okay,
And I
go.
did. I'm in business development.
Yeah, you were
so,
saying, okay.
You know, I buy energy for commercial real estate, which is literally probably nothing to do with hospitality whatsoever. But the reality of it is that, again, people, relationships. I have a friend that made an investment at the company. I started doing that. Luckily, it was the only, it was my saving grace.
Yeah. Oh, God.
To, keep myself.
So without, we're going to have two details on the divorce. That's a little private. But what advice do you have for somebody who's watching this, who's maybe going through it? Because I remember we talked about this during my divorce. I had a weird relationship with money. You just like, as a kid, saving your, what is it? Baptism money, confirmation money, even your wedding money, like just like I was always conservative, blocking, tackling, raising wealth, investments, that kind of stuff. And then getting divorced, you piss away so much money that it like fucks up your relationship with money, where for a while it affected me. And then like while you're getting divorced, you're not supposed to make a lot of money because there'll be calculations based off of like that. And then it's like, but as an entrepreneur, you have to make money. And then like I'd be honest, Peter, like 3 or 4 years after I got divorced, I was like trained not to make money. And I was like scared to make money. And I was like it fucked up my relationship with money. It took a good mentally 4 or 5 years to break that cycle. Can you walk me through your experience and how you dealt with it?
First and foremost, I think, listen, obviously it sucks. Nobody wants to go. Nobody gets married saying,
hey, I want to get divorced. Correct.
Okay, no, I don't think anybody does that.
And then families, people like feel like they have to pick sides, and people get weird.
They do, and it's like, but I got news for you. There's some positive that comes out of
there
that.
There is.
Okay, and I'll speak to that a little bit. But if anybody has to go through it and they have children, I think knowing what I went through, I think that people have to try as hard as they want to kill their spouses and say awful things and just really are just very angry.
Yeah.
I think that if you make decisions based upon what's best for your kids for a period of time, and you make the decision based on what will be the least path of resistance for them indefinitely, I think it'll make it a little bit better, because people really just want to go to war, and lawyers suck. Their job is to make money.
Yeah, they want maximize value. Yeah.
They want to throw gas on every piece of smoke they see.
Yep.
And the reality of it is they're the big winner. So, they're the big winner. The lawyers are the big winners.
Yep.
There's some good ones out there, and there's some really, really, really shitty ones who just know how to ignite a fire really well. And as far as what it did with me with money, listen, luckily I was still in debt. Like, I'm like,
at this point, it's like, fuck it.
It's like, what am I going to do? Am I going to drown myself? No, you become conservative.
Yeah.
You do things that, the first year I was open, I didn't do anything. I just worked and I kept my head down. And I still.
And it's so weird. Like you're like old and you're broke. It's weird.
It's not fun.
It's just weird. Like
listen,
it's like
I'm not
it's like
broke
you're
used
to.
to.
No, I know. Neither am I. But like for a while,
it sucks.
No, but like for a while, like I was. I got divorced. What was I? Probably it started in 16. So I was a little past 40 years old, and I just like, and not just that. Like it's the money you do have, you got to hold on to because you're worried, and like. There's like just this ongoing retainer with the. I remember when I met my attorney the first time. He's like, "You're looking at like $50K." I'm like, "Hell no!" I'm like, "Where we get along, and it's going to be amicable, and we're both Italian, and we're both old school, and we care about the kids, and just like that, like care about the kids first." But this was not the case, and like he actually, believe it or not, was very big on managing fees. Mm-hmm. So he's like, just don't go down this rabbit hole. Don't do this. Don't do that. Blah blah blah. And it was almost frustrating because he was really literally would bring up the management of fees, and he probably saved me $50,000. So in retrospect, maybe giving up certain things here and there in the greater good,
Correct,
probably saved me 2 or 3x off of that.
So I had a lawyer that I hired in the beginning, and he was supposedly a great attorney.
Yeah.
He probably is or was.
Yeah.
Could be a great attorney, but we had a conflict of personality. I think it's the most diplomatic way to say it.
And then you had to get a new one?
So I had to get another lawyer. And
But that's what sucks is like a breakup there. It's like, then what happened to all the shit that guy did?
I had to pay him too.
Yeah.
So I was not paying one, I was paying two. And it was
Fun
like,
times.
the reality of it is now, like, I'm knock on wood.
Yeah.
Hopefully this doesn't start another fire. But I have got the attorney that I ended up with was a younger guy who was he had a great conscience, and he was a great guy, and he was the one that was like,
So the right attorney matters so
do
much.
you really want to deal with this? Because
Yeah.
I'm witnessing what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
How long do you want to deal with this for?
Good point.
He's like, just fucking, he goes, you're young.
Yeah.
You'll be fine. Fucking end
He's
it.
got great hair. I don't. I'm losing some.
But
also, I
you
think I'm older than you.
it is.
Or at least look at.
Listen, you ended up with
My beautiful wife.
a
I'm
great
happy.
new wife. I have a girlfriend
Yeah.
now who keeps me very balanced, and she's a great girl and
That's so
understands
crazy
what I
how
do.
that all.
And listen, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
So if my mother, who's like that old school, yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
Everything, my mother, if that wasn't a sign, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
My mother, who's like, I don't know how she ended up with my father. And my
Yeah.
father's a great guy, but I
Yeah.
think she was supposed to work in a convent somewhere.
Yeah.
She's saintly. She says that indefinitely. She's like, everything happens for a reason. And if you keep that mindset,
Yeah.
all positive things come out of something.
So you go through, kind of like the triple threat, right? Then, like the pandemic and that kind of stuff. When did things start turning around? And then was like, I'm back, back, meet a great new girlfriend. Vinny's making money. You have your other business development that you're working on. When did things started cooking again for you?
I gotta tell you, I think it was about a year and a half ago.
Oh, sweet.
2 years. Yeah.
Your
about a
face
year
lit
and a-
up.
Yeah, it did. It was like,
We got to watch this again. Your interview before, and then talking about divorce. Your voice changed, everything changed,
sucked.
and now we're talking about your current life. You have a glow about you. I like
no,
that.
I do. I'm happy.
That's awesome.
Listen, everybody gets in a rut and a funk once in a while, but it's like, who are you in that rut with?
Yeah.
And who's
Good
pushing
point.
for you, right?
Good point.
So it's a matter of who's going to help you push that rock up the mountain.
So how about guys like us that are in that second important relationship? What are some of the learnings from that?
Truthfully, somebody, a very wise person, and told me this, and it makes sense. Like, a lot of people make the mistake when they get married that they stop dating, right?
Yes.
You have to date the person that you're with indefinitely. You have to treat them like you're courting them for the first time, and you got to make sure that it just doesn't go away. So learn from your mistakes and don't settle. Life's too short to settle, I think, at any point. And when it becomes too much work,
then it becomes a little.
it shouldn't be another job. It should be enjoyable. And when it's a job, it's like, all right, what are we really doing here? So it's like, it's
And in retrospect, the divorce process looks like kind of so simple because, like, it really was about, let's be honest, it was really about first the children, right? And then you kind of want to come up with an amicable, whether it be co-parenting, whatever people do, right? Their decision. But co-parenting, how you're going to move forward with that. And then number two, the financial. Outside of that, everything else is just minutia. There isn't really much else going on. And both of those were negotiated like during two critical meetings, at least for me. I'm like, why do we need all this other shit for?
They don't. And the reality of it is,
You know what I mean?
it's a system. They call it a judicial system for a reason. They like to make money.
And family law has like its own rules. Like there's own
I have said this. I said this to my attorney because he's a huge pizza nut.
Yeah.
Ironically, he had no idea what I did when he was
perfect.
When I met him through somebody.
Maybe we could pay him pizza.
And he's a pizza guy and he's down to earth and we were talking and it's like we were like talking one afternoon about it and I just lost my whole train of what I was going to say.
Talking pizza attorney, we're talking about how two like different bottlenecks in divorce. Your attorney was going to mention something, and then he's a big pizza guy. See, I'm actually listening.
Clearly, my ADD just kicked in. I saw a butterfly.
No worries.
But no, he talked a lot of sense into me going through the divorce.
Yeah.
And just kind of kept me on a path to try to keep at least amount of resistance as possible.
So what's next for you?
What's next for me? I gotta be honest with you. I'm working on, which I hope you invite me back for,
Yeah.
a really, really, really cool pizza app.
Oh, wow.
Pizza Hut app.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, I was introduced.
Well, if you need a marketer for that, I know somebody.
I know. Guess what? This wasn't an accident.
There you go.
So I met a young guy through one of the companies I'm doing business with.
Awesome.
Who created an app that he just finished patenting. We have some of the development done, but the reality of it is that a guy like you, who loves the pizza industry and is a pizza head, and we're going to be able to help create some content for some small businesses.
That's awesome.
You know, there's going to be some subscription stuff. It's going to be cool. So
I like that.
We've got content behind it. It's just a couple months, I think, from ready to being rolled out. But that's something I've been working on because we think we found the loophole to help some small businesses who aren't capable of creating the content in the fashion that somebody like me or doesn't have the budget to pay somebody to come in and do because it's really not cheap to do.
Yeah, because we have New Jersey Digest, which you know about, but we also have a marketing agency, and it's such like a quandrum because the restaurant guys and gals kind of need us the most because food is very experiential, it's visual, but they also don't always have the budget. Well, you should only put like 6% into marketing, I think, if you have a restaurant. And that's kind of being generous, right?
Yeah, and the reality of it is that what I do is probably less than that because at this stage.
Well, you have like an earned press machine just because you have a product driven, so you like those. I'm sorry if I'm wrong. Those nights till 3 a.m. when like pissing off your girlfriend, where you're like, oh my god, I need to put like a cup of pepperoni, not a full pepperoni. Like that obsession over making a great product was kind of your marketing expense because people liked it, and now they want to bring other people, and you got like earned business kind of versus making a decent pizza and hiring a guy like me to make it look better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, listen, I'm fortunate enough that I think I have a pretty good sense in the marketing world.
Yeah. Oh, no, you're savvy. I mean, like
in that. So it's like it's so important, and having, everybody in my logic is they're like, oh, you don't do anything. I'm like, I don't, but I have an internet presence. So it's like the internet is way more exposure than anything you're going to get in any.
Well, that was funny because when I went in there, we were chit chatting. And we had a pizza, which I loved, but like it was interesting because we started chatting, and I immediately wanted you to have you on. I don't have like, you're my first pizza guy. I don't have, like,
I got a lot more storage. You
like, oh no, we're gonna have you back. I do gotta ask you a question. I need you to settle this, and if you don't want to answer on camera, but. So I belong to the Italian American Club out of Westfield, right? Uh-huh. And what's interesting is it's like everybody's from all over. Like, Italians are dissipating. So it's like before in Elizabeth, there was a Valades Club. That's where our family's from. But now it's all old timers, and it's far from, I'm not going to Elizabeth, it's too far from me. So I go to Westfield for my Italian American Club, right?
You went to the waspiest town in the country.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, exactly. And it's not by town. So you have everybody who's Sicilian, who's Calabrese, the whole bit, right? So the president of the club, great guy, Rocky. So he has a pizzeria, and then we got a little bit of an argument. Because I used to date a girl who had a pizzeria. My family had a pizzeria, I think 2 pizzerias. And he told me a little bit about the business. I was saying a pizza now, right, has a 70%, not net, but gross margin. And he said, absolutely not. It's much less. And I said, no, I'm not talking about net margin. Gross margin, if I make a pizza for $10, it should cost no less than $3 in product. And we to this day fight over this.
I think when you were dating this girl, that was the situation.
So food costs are more than 30% for pizza?
I'll give you a specific.
Okay.
I opened up 4 years ago. Bag of flour costs $15. If you go to buy the same bag of flour today, it's $25.
Jeez.
$26,
so up 60%.
So as much as I don't want to say this because I love everybody that's in this industry, because I don't think people realize the hard work it is to be in a restaurant business.
Oh, no, that's why I said gross margin. I didn't get in the people. I didn't get to keep the lights on, the oven, the gas.
And you'll see where I'm going with this. Like, COVID is still not really hit home with a lot of these small businesses.
You got like the overhang.
It's not. People are hurting right now, and the old places are hurting the most because if you've owned and operated a business for 30 years, 35 years, and your prices have been X.
Yep. How do you go up? How do you go up?
You're not telling a 65-year-old Italian guy he's got to start charging $23 for his pizza to make it work. And these businesses, they might be doing business, but they're not making money.
Well, so what I found interesting about. So remember, like back in the day, right? Maybe, but so you would have a pizza, and it would be, I don't know, $1.50 a slice, right? And it would be, let's say, 10 slices. So a pie would be, let's say, $15. It used to be 2 of the slices covered the whole pie. So it was like you sold 2, the rest is butter, right? But now it's like half. Wow.
Cost of cheese has gone up. It's commodity. It's skyrocketed.
Do you use Grande or who do you use?
I use Grande. I've had so many companies come to me and offer me ridiculous deals, and I just refuse to do it for 2 reasons. So like, I'm a pretty loyal guy for the most part, and especially when you go through a hard time and somebody's like, they put their hand out to help you. Good. I don't. Yeah, the rep is a legit guy. I had a flood. First year I was open, I had to shut down for a month because Millburn flooded out. You know, wealthiest town in the country, can't get their drainage right. Flooded out. Wow. I had to close. The guy from Grande loaded 10 cases of cheese in his car and drove it to me, and he's like,
"That's amazing.
Take these to reopen. Get open for a week. It's on us."
Considering they have like a quasi monopoly, did you? And I'm not as well versed as I should be, but did you ever read about the old cheese wars between the Bananas and Gambinos and like Philly area? They're blowing up pizzerias left and right.
Yeah, Performance Foods.
Yeah, that was like, you know, so like back in the day, obviously the cheese industry had a little bit of a great past, but and we did a story actually on Digest where Al Capone had interest in the original Grande, whatever it was, Joe Banana, those guys, and that the reason why I went with that kind of, what's that cheese called? It's kind of mozzarella. It's made a certain way because it would last longer, because that's how they wanted it, and that became the preferred cheese in the U.S.
The type of the curd?
So that may be why the low moisture cheese may have been used every day, because of the whole Al Capone banana thing. But now Grande is obviously a lot different now. It's a different environment, because in Italy it's generally fresh mozzarella, right?
Wet, fresh. The pizza in Italy is complete. I mean, it's like night and day.
Yeah.
But a lot of the way that the foods are processed there. Listen, that's a whole nother. I'll talk to you about that for hours, because
lack of.
We are
right?
What we serve in the States.
Yeah.
Versus what other parts of the world are doing.
Yeah.
Is sinister. Okay, it's sinister.
Yeah.
And this part of our government just has no conscience any longer, as far as I'm concerned, to allow these things to be put into foods compared to what they do in Europe. Italy specifically fought their government, the people of the country fought their government to not allow GMOs, not allowed the Bill Gateses of the world to create fake friggin' meat, because
they also have like a pizza code army, right? Like if you're a certain
you have to be, if you serve a Neapolitan style pizza, you have to go to Napoli and you have to be certified.
That's crazy.
You go to a school, you have to be certified. Listen, there's just a different level of pride that is taken in Italy and in France and in Spain, in Brazil and other parts of the world for the culinary achievements that are happening. They take food differently than we do.
But you also, when we spoke, although like you have more of a traditional American style pizza, which is excellent, you did have some Italian influence in making your pizza, correct?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the reality of it is I don't use any frozen or unprocessed.
Yeah, no, it's all fresh ingredients. Fresh. Yeah.
And we always had a firm belief in anything that you end with is what you start with. So all the products that I buy are very, very high, very good high-end products. They're all fresh. I make sure the purveyors that I get it from give me fresh stuff. If not, I send them back.
Like it.
Listen, do I go to Restaurant Depot like the rest of the world to buy certain things? You do.
Yeah,
but not things that I'm promoting myself using.
Yeah.
But I was just in Italy. I was in Italy in June, and
where'd you go?
We flew into Rome and drove to Sorrento for a week, and then I was in Rome for about a week.
That's fun.
And everywhere that we were, I was educating myself almost incessantly, because I hadn't been back to Italy since I was in hospitality.
Yeah.
And that was always something that drove me nuts. I was there. My parents were fortunate enough that I was able to go there and spend time with my family when I was younger. And it changed me at 17, 18 years old. It changed me indefinitely of how I viewed food.
Yeah, I went to Italy when I was 17. I couldn't afford to go before that. And I spent was there 10 times in the next 10 years, and just totally different with food.
It's different. Yeah. What we do in the States, how we perceive a meal in the States is for fuel.
Yeah.
And how they perceive a meal in Europe is a lifestyle. It's the time with people. It's the education of what went into whoever made that meal and where
Correct.
the tomatoes came from, how the
Yep.
pasta was cooked,
Yep.
the fish in which the region was from, the wine in which you're drinking, the family that owned it. There's just a lot more depth and culture to it.
Exactly.
You know, I think that we sadly, generationally, we're losing that, and I'm determined to make sure that, you know, I ingrain that in both of my kids to
Everything
at
you
least
do.
appreciate the simplicity of a meal.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard
With
these
family,
days.
even better, you know?
Yeah, listen, my parents are in their 70s.
Yeah.
You know, I have my kids the weekends I have my kids. Every single Sunday I cook.
Yeah,
They
man,
come.
that's
I don't
amazing.
care.
Yeah.
I make sure now, because the reality of it is you're never guaranteed more time.
Good point.
And the more time you spend with your parents and they're with their grandparents, and those are the memories that are going to last.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's how they learn about food. You know, I have one
Yep.
son that he could eat friggin' pizza 3 times a day. And I'll tell you one more story before you wrap me up. Like, I would bring them there with me as you know, as taste testers. And at the time, my younger son
That's cute.
was, I guess he was 4. And he has a little bit more of my personality when it comes to food. He's very adventurous. He's inquisitive, which I love. And I put the pizza down on a plate. I'm like, Daniel, I'm like, I want you to taste the pizza for the first time. I was like, this is how Uncle Vinny made pizza. This is how our family makes pizza. I want you to taste it. And he looks at me and he goes like this. He takes it and he goes, he slid it away from me. I said, what the hell are you doing? He's like, that's not pizza. He goes, your pizza has no crust. I'm not eating it.
What
and I'm like,
the heck?
the hell are you talking about? Like, picked it up. I'm like, this is all the crust. I'm like, I have cheese on the crust. I'm like, this is the crust. He's like, no, that's not crust. And I'm not eating it.
That's epic.
Fast forward now, about 6 months ago, it took 3.5 years. He's like eating it, and I caught him eating it, and I was like, you're eating the pizza.
That's funny.
He's like, all right, it is pretty good.
What's the deal with, like, because I get why you do it. There is some char on the end of the crust by design, and it's tasty. But whenever we post on social and stuff, people assume it's burnt.
I'm going to politely say they're undereducated.
Yeah.
In what it is. And I got to the point now where
Just like, fuck it, is what it is.
not even fuck it. I just love when they say it, because I actually now will, like, I will put the first piece of gas on that smoke and be like, please start talking about it so I can call you out on it.
I love it.
It's caramelized. So the reality of it is the way that we season our pans, you'll get a caramelized edge around it. Is the cheese burnt? No, it's not roasted. It's cooked. We use a specific oil so that it doesn't burn.
Correct.
And I see a lot of guys that are starting to try and do it. And I'm watching them do it, and I'm like listening to them, and I'm like, I know why that's burnt. That's caramelized. Yours is burnt because you're using the wrong oil, and it can't cook at that temperature. That's cooked. It's 2 different things.
Love that.
So listen, you love it, you hate it. It's what we do. It is what it is.
I love it.
So if you don't like that style of pizza, each to their own. Don't eat it. It's that simple.
I had to get them all worked up before we conclude. So for those that are watching, that are still watching and got to learn about the how cheese is cooked, how could people Peter? How could people best find you?
Honestly, the best way to find us is our Instagram. I do most of our stuff on there. It's Vinny's Pan Pizza.
I'll put a link below.
At Vinny's Pan Pizza is great. If you want to like our Facebook page, that's great. I'm trying to get better with TikTok. I just have a love-hate relationship with it. I'm just like, how many social
You don't want to
media
do the Renegade?
All
right, so now we do have a good audience outside Jersey. So at this point, you just have to come in. You're not shipping out yet, right?
We are not shipping out yet. Yesterday, I had a guy come in, 4 pies, went to Hawaii. He shipped them on his own.
Fair enough.
Last week, that was another thing that was funny with Portnoy. People from all over the country were calling in to get stuff shipped to them.
On a UPS store, so the offer is, if you call me, email me, Tom and New Theory, you pay for the shipping, I'll ship it out for you.
Also, we are, I think, good fun fact, we're one of the highest rated pizzerias closest to Newark Airport.
Oh, wow.
So it's like us, Santillo's.
So you'll get like somebody.
I have people that literally come in with suitcases constantly because we've got great reviews on TripAdvisor. So people that are real pizza heads, everybody loves to come into an area. And that's one of the beautiful things about Jersey. Like, there's a little bit of something for everybody, right? So, like, yeah, there's pizza competitions, but, like, we have a group of guys which you guys should come out to. We usually meet once every couple months. We meet at somebody's shop. 4 great pizzerias. The guys from DeLucas comes.
Oh, wow.
I think Al Santillo went to the last one. I couldn't make it.
I just met Al recently,
Angeloni's,
actually. Yeah.
Bagels by Jared.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of guys that come.
That's awesome.
Terminal. And we talk shop and we hang out.
That's sweet. See, that's and they're all good guys. I know some of them and other guys I either follow. So, Peter, thank you for being on. This was a long time coming. I know we've been planning this for a little bit. definitely will be a part 2. And thanks for checking.
I appreciate you having me, guys. Thanks everybody for the exposure. I appreciate it.
Thank you.